Traditional algebra and geometry are built for static systems. They calculate fixed areas, steady rates, and objects perfectly at rest. But the physical world rarely sits still. Everything around us is in a constant, dynamic state of change. Take a projectile mid-flight and freeze time. You face a poor engineering problem. How do you measure exact speed at a single, motionless instant? To calculate velocity, you divide a change in distance by a change in time, known as delta t. But at a frozen instant, the change in time is zero. If you divide by zero, standard algebra simply breaks. The equation yields an undefined state, offering no numerical answer. In 1687, Isaac Newton published his laws of motion, standardizing the mechanics of moving bodies. But to truly apply these mechanics, mathematicians needed a completely new theoretical framework. As physicist Hermann von Helmholtz later noted, calculus was absolutely required to dispel the ancient darkness surrounding infinitesimals. That solution is the mathematical limit. It acts as an analytical engine, safely tracking a function infinitely close to an undefined point, bridging the gap between static algebra and continuous motion. Take the physical reality of continuous gravitational acceleration. Dropping a rock from a cliff, its velocity visibly increases every fraction of a second. This chart plots distance over time. The green secant line represents the average rate between 2 points. By shrinking the time interval toward zero, the secant line becomes a true tangent line, revealing an instantaneous velocity of exactly 9.8 meters per second. Finding a circle's area requires the same logic. A 9-sided polygon leaves a gap against the curve, but by multiplying the sides toward infinity, the straight perimeter maps perfectly to the circumference, forcing the polygon's area formula to resolve into pi r squared. This reveals the informal definition of a limit. You can force a function's output as close as you want to a target value purely by bringing the input close enough to the target point, without ever actually equaling it. Visual models provide intuition, but finding an undefined point's exact coordinate requires strict algebraic mechanics. This graph plots x squared minus 1 over x minus 1. Because we cannot mathematically divide by 0, direct substitution yields 0 over 0. The line contains an empty hole at x equals 1, an indeterminate form standard arithmetic cannot process. Limits evade this trap by relying entirely on the behavior of the numbers immediately surrounding the undefined point, letting us use algebra to remove the 0 from the denominator. If we expand the numerator of our function into its factored form, we get x minus 1 times x plus 1. By canceling the common x minus 1 terms on the top and bottom, we physically remove the division by 0 trap. We are left with x plus 1. Evaluating this simplified equation at x equals 1 mathematically proves the limit is 2. Established limit rules allow us to combine, factor, and simplify complex functions in this exact way, provided the final denominator's limit is not 0. Algebraic limits serve as a precision diagnostic tool. We calculate the exact coordinate of an undefined hole without ever touching the catastrophic 0 itself. This framework relies entirely on consistency. So what happens when the values approaching an undefined point do not agree with each other? The signum function outputs -1 for negative numbers and +1 for positive numbers. Tracing the path as x approaches 0 from the negative side gives a left limit of -1. Approaching from the positive side gets a right limit of +1. Mathematical law dictates that for a true limit to exist, the left and right limits must perfectly align and be equal. Because the signum function approaches two conflicting realities at the origin, its limit at 0 does not exist. The limit framework enforces strict logical symmetry. With modern hardware, you might wonder why engineers can't use software to bypass calculus, continually plugging infinitesimally small numbers into a function to find answers. This is a graph of the function g of x, defined as 1 plus x squared raised to the power of 1 over x squared. We want to evaluate it as x approaches 0. For moderately small values, the computer correctly shows the output smoothly converging on e. But zooming into the microscopic scale, looking at inputs smaller than 10 to the -8th power, the floating point arithmetic devolves into a jagged, chaotic scatterplot. This is a round-off error. Computers have finite memory limits. At this extreme scale, the processor physically cannot distinguish 1 plus 0.00001 squared from exactly 1. Because the software rounds the base down to 1, it attempts to calculate 1 to the power of infinity. It incorrectly outputs a flat 1, completely missing the true value of 2.718. Purely numerical approximations inherently self-destruct at the infinitesimal scale. Rigorous, exact analytical proofs remain the only valid way to evaluate limits. That leaves one final structural problem. How do you find the limit of an erratic function that cannot be algebraically simplified? You use bounding logic, specifically the squeeze theorem. By establishing upper and lower boundaries, we set them to converge perfectly at a single coordinate. An erratic function trapped between these curves has nowhere else to go. It is mathematically forced through that exact same coordinate. The squeeze theorem acts as an irrefutable geometric and algebraic trap. It proves that mathematical chaos can be strictly forced into a precise, knowable limit. Geometric exhaustion, algebraic factorization, symmetrical boundaries, and bounding traps. Regardless of the specific domain, the architectural goal of the limit remains exactly the same: bypassing the undefined zero to extract a precise value. Calculus was created entirely to map quantities in continuous states of transition. As we've seen, raw computation is blind at the microscopic edge of zero. It requires the logic of these proofs to actually function. By systematically dispelling the darkness around infinitesimals, the limit transforms the paradox of continuous space and motion into an exact, solvable science. In calculus, we eventually have to ask, what happens to a mathematical function when we stretch its input to unimaginably large numbers, or when its denominator shrinks all the way to zero? This split-screen graph maps our two possible scenarios. On the left, we have limits at infinity, where the curve levels out into a horizontal asymptote. On the right, we have infinite limits, where a shrinking denominator forces the curve upward against a vertical asymptote. In both cases, infinity acts as a direction, defining where the curve is heading rather than serving as a static number we can plug in. To evaluate these extremes algebraically, we use a single baseline rule. Look at this equation. If x approaches infinity, 1 divided by any positive power of x collapses straight to 0. A massive denominator simply crushes the fraction. Mastering these behaviors allows us to predict the ultimate boundaries of a function without having to calculate millions of individual points along the way. Let's apply this to rational functions. This limit is difficult at a glance due to complex polynomials. The algorithm is reliable. Find the highest denominator power, x squared, and divide every term by it. The remaining fractions vanish, leaving exactly 2/3. Pause the video and apply that exact same algorithm to this top-heavy problem, 5x plus 2 over 2x cubed. Divide every term by x cubed. The numerator terms collapse to 0, giving us 0 divided by 2, which is 0. This algorithm works because the dominant term in the denominator dictates the scaling for the entire structure. It acts as the strict horizontal ceiling for the mathematical function's extreme edges. We must use caution when taking x to negative infinity while dealing with square roots. In this expression, you cannot simply slide a negative variable under a radical without altering the sign. Mathematically, the square root of x squared is the absolute value of x. Because x approaches negative infinity, that absolute value becomes negative x. The expression simplifies to -1. Subtracting two infinitely growing terms does not automatically equal 0. This is an indeterminate form, meaning the actual limit is hidden and requires algebraic intervention to reveal. The solution is to multiply the expression by its conjugate over itself, forcing it into a fraction. This maneuver causes the complex numerator to collapse down to just x, allowing us to factor and find the finite limit of 1/2. Raw visual intuition often fails at the extremes. Rigorous algebraic manipulation exposes the true mathematical limits hiding behind the concept of infinity. We've looked at limits at infinity. Now let's look at limits that equal infinity. This happens when our limit approaches a finite number, but the denominator shrinks to 0. First, factor the denominator, exposing the binomial causing the 0, in this case x minus 2. Because the value is undefined exactly at 2, we must check the behavior from both sides. By plugging in test value slightly below and above 2, the signs flip, proving the graph shoots to negative infinity on one side and positive infinity on the other. That 0 in the denominator marks a vertical fracture in the graph, requiring a surgical inspection from both sides to map the behavior correctly. Before we wrap up, here is a shortcut for pure polynomials. The highest degree term dominates completely. As x grows large, all lesser terms become irrelevant. Calculating the lead term alone reveals the final behavior. Take a screenshot of this summary. In the top left, we have the algorithm for dividing by the highest power for rational functions. In the top right, the absolute value conversion for negative infinity. In the bottom left, the conjugate method for indeterminate forms. Finally, the bottom right reminds us to check left and right bounds whenever we encounter division by 0. Infinity is a predictable behavior, governed by these absolute rules.
Looking at these two graphs, we can see two very different types of real-world change. On the left, tracking the distance of a car driving down the highway creates a smooth, unbroken curve. But on the right, the cost of a parked car stays at $2 for the first hour, then instantly jumps to $4 the second the clock ticks over. We often learn that a function is continuous if you can trace its graph without lifting your pen. That's a helpful starting point, but calculus requires a precise mathematical rule to handle complex equations. The mathematical rule for continuity at a point has 3 strict conditions. First, the function must have a defined value at a given point. Let's call it c. Second, the limit as x approaches c must exist, meaning the path from the left and the right must target the same height. Finally, that limit must perfectly equal the function's actual value. If the path misses the point, or if the left and right sides don't align, the limit fails to equal the function's value. The continuity is broken, and the theoretical pen has to lift off the page. These failures take 3 distinct forms on a graph: a jump, where the line breaks vertical alignment, an asymptote, where the values shoot toward infinity, and a hole, where a smooth curve is interrupted by a single missing point. You cannot easily fix a jump or an asymptote, but a hole is a removable discontinuity. The surrounding path remains intact, missing only a single set of coordinates. Take this rational function, x squared minus x, divided by x squared minus 1. If we try to evaluate this directly at x equals 1, both the numerator and the denominator become 0. This 0 over 0 error means the function is undefined at that specific spot. To find the exact value that belongs in that gap, we turn to algebra. We factor the numerator to x times the quantity x minus 1 and the denominator to x plus 1 times x minus 1. Now, we can cancel out those shared x minus 1 terms. So what's left is x over x plus 1. Evaluating this simplified limit at x equals 1 gives us 1/2. That provides the exact y-coordinate needed to fill the hole. By calculating the limit and assigning that missing y value, you heal the broken function. This process is called finding a continuous extension. Let's test this process. This function, x squared minus 4 over x minus 2, has a removable discontinuity at x equals 2. Pause the video, factor the numerator, and calculate the exact limit required to plug the hole. The top factors into x minus 2 times x plus 2. We cancel the x minus 2 from both the top and the bottom, leaving just x plus 2. Plugging in our x value of 2 gives us a limit of 4. By determining that the point 2, 4 completes the curve, you successfully authored your own continuous extension. We can act as the architect for a piecewise function to force 2 separate equations to connect. We have the parabola x squared for x values up to 2. For x values greater than 2, the path is defined by the equation k minus x squared. For the final graph to be continuous at x equals 2, the limit approaching from the left must equal the limit approaching from the right. We start by calculating the left side's terminal value at x equals 2. 2 squared is 4. We set that equal to the right side's starting expression, k minus 2 squared, or k minus 4. Adding 4 to both sides, we find that k equals 8. This is the exact parameter needed to lock the 2 functions together. Continuity always requires passing the 3-point limit checklist. When a function fails because of a removable discontinuity, you can solve it by factoring and canceling.
Calculating these limits provides the coordinates needed to bridge the gap between separate expressions, turning disconnected equations into a single function.